Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS. In this, we are going to cover the class 7th NCERT, that is for science, and this is chapter number 9, that is the life processes in animals. So, let us start with the chapter. And this chapter starts with a very beautiful quote, and it says, this is by Tirukural: if your food is fully digested, if your food is fully digested before you decide to eat again, you don't need medicine for pain. Simple line says that you should not actually overeat. That means you should let the food that you have eaten, let it be digested within its own times. Let your body perform the functions of digestion. If you do so, then you will never have any kind of pain. Okay, that means you might not need any kind of medicine in your life. Now, let us see the introduction first, understand this. So, in grade 6, curiosity book, the textbook, we have seen that there is a chapter on living creatures. We have covered this living creatures and exploring their characteristics. So, we learned about the processes essential for survival of living beings. What are essential for survival of living beings? It is actually nutrition, respiration, excretion, and reproduction. Remember that we talked about how living organisms are different from non-living ones. Okay, and we talk about what are the similarities with respect to the living organisms and what are the differences that we have with respect to the non-living objects. So we found out that they actually grow and develop, they reproduce. That means there is some kind of young ones that they leave after them. There is respiration. That means air is something that is important to breathe. Okay, and if you are trying to hold your breath for a longer time, you will find that it is not easy for us to sustain ourselves. We will develop a feeling of discomfort and we will need the there would be a starvation of oxygen, a kind of sorts, right? So excretion is necessary, reproduction is necessary. So these are collectively, what are they called? They're called as life processes. Okay, life processes matlab living organisms performing their life processes, and these life processes are necessary for their survival. So now, in this chapter, what they are trying to tell us, it is about the life processes. Okay, not all the life processes, but this is about nutrition and respiration. We understand this, that how do these mechanisms take place with respect to human beings. All right. Now, this is very interesting chapter. Okay, let us try first. Start with this. So, first of all, observe your surroundings and notice what the animals eat. You will see that animals will eat different types of foods. Okay, bees and sunbirds, they will suck the nectar of the flowers, while infants of humans, what do they eat? Infants of humans and many other animals, they will feed on the milk that is produced by their mother. That is the mother's milk. Okay, snakes, what about snakes like python? They swallow the whole of animals that they prey upon. What about the aquatic species? Aquatic animals, that means the ones that dwell in water, they filter tiny food particles floating nearby and feed upon them. This is to say that all living organisms, they require nutrition. But what is the process of getting this nutrition from the things that they eat? Okay, they eat certain things. So what is that internal mechanism that helps them to derive nutrition for their growth and development and for all the kinds of life processes that they are going to perform? How do they derive this nutrition so that they can run their life processes smoothly? Okay, now let us see animals. See here, animals, including humans, they obtain energy from food. Okay, this is one statement that we have constantly said. We have also said that main source of energy is sun. Okay, even if it is a cow who's feeding on grass, the grass is deriving food, its energy from the sun, and therefore the cow also derives its energy from the sun. Okay, now animals consume food. Okay, this is an important statement, important one. Animals consume food that contains complex components. You might have heard about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. These are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. These are the complex components. Remember, we are saying complex components. What is nutrition? How the nutrition is derived in the body? It is from the conversion of these complex substances. Okay, so here you will see these complex food components, they actually break down. They break down into simpler forms before the body can use them. So for use by body, this complex this complex component has to be broken down into what? Into simpler forms. Only then the body can use them. ठीक है. It is not like your body will automatically derive nutrition out of guava, okay, if you eat it wholly. Okay, it is not like the nutrients are made available. Yes, it contains some complex components within it, and these complex components, through your own digestive process, they will convert it into simpler substances. Now these simpler substances are something that you can definitely use as consumption for your own life processes, right? Now further, it says that the breaking down of complex food components into simpler forms occurs in a long tube called the alimentary canal. Alimentary canal. It starts the process. The process starts in the mouth and ends at the ends. Now you can see in this figure, all of the things that are mentioned here, they form a part of this alimentary canal. That means all your digestive processes. Okay, that means we are saying that how does the digestive process? What is the digestive process? What is the motive of digestive process? First is that there would be consumption of food. Okay, food will have various kinds of complex substances in the form of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and these are complex substances. To derive energy out of them, to derive energy for sustaining our life processes, we need to break them down into simpler substances. If we have to break them down into simpler substances, there is a mechanism that is provided within our bodies, and that whole thing is called alimentary canal. This is the thing. You see here, how does the process start? It starts through mouth, okay, and ends in the anus. Okay, ends with anus, right? Now, you will see as food moves through various canals, digestive juices are secreted. You will see that, of course, there is a process of complex substances getting into simpler substances. We need certain types of digestive juices that can break them down at different levels. You can see so many components are there. There is esophagus or food pipe, there is liver, there is stomach, pancreas, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and then your anus. Right? Then, so we are talking about as food moves through this canal, digestive juices secreted at different parts will break it down into simpler forms. So this simpler form of food is absorbed by the different parts of an alimentary canal. At different points, you will have secretion of digestive juices that will break down into simpler substances. And at different points in this alimentary canal, you will also have absorption of the nutrients that are required for life processes. And then they are transported to various parts of our body to carry out various functions. Now let us understand nutrition in animals. Starting with this process in human beings. Okay, now, first of all, we have seen the whole digestive process. It starts with the mouth. Our understanding is, are there any components? Are there any kind of digestion that takes place in the mouth itself? It is said that you must chew your food 32 times. What is the reason behind it? Why do you need to chew your food 32 times? It is because the partial digestion starts in the mouth cavity itself. Okay, so let us read this. Journey of food you eat begins when it enters your mouth. Your teeth. What is the responsibility of teeth? Teeth must crush it, and it is responsible for chewing. The process of initial breakdown of food into fine pieces is called mechanical digestion. Okay, that means if you eat a guava, your teeth is performing the function of chewing it and crushing it. Okay, this is called mechanical digestion. Once it converts itself into finer particles, finer pieces that you can ingest, that you can take inside and lead to food pipe, then it is ingested. Okay. Now, one more thing. This is one thing that is your when we talk about mouth cavity, teeth. The second is saliva. Okay, that means it starts with understanding. Like when you think about anything delicious, let us say you think about fast food. Okay, you think about a burger or you think about sandwich. Does your mouth start watering? Okay, what is that water? Where is that water coming from? That is actually saliva. Okay, this saliva. What are the components in this saliva? First of all, this happens because more saliva that gets released when you recall your favorite food. है ना? It is said कि your mouth starts watering, mouth watering. Okay. When you hear certain foods, the name of certain foods, even then your mind invokes this kind of saliva production. Okay. So what do you think is the role of saliva in your mouth? Okay, one was teeth used for crushing and chewing, mechanical digestion. What about saliva? Okay. So there is one small experiment that you can also try out today. Okay, that means if you are eating your meal, okay, if you are eating a meal and suppose you are taking chapati, if you're taking rice, okay, chew it properly for 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, this is normal than most people would normally chew food. I would advise you that you should definitely chew your food multiple number of times before you ingest it inside. Okay, so at first it will have its usual taste, but later on when you chew it for a very very longer time, you will find that there is some taste that makes it feel very very, not very very sweet, but it tastes sweeter. Okay, sweeter as compared to its usual taste. Okay, and why does this happen? Why does this happen? The reason is that it contains starch. Okay, rice or chapati, both of these food items that is quite staple in India. A lot of people eat it. It contains starch, and this starch is a type of carbohydrate. Remember, we talked about carbohydrate, protein, and then we also said what is required is fat. All of these are complex substances. So, carbohydrate, one of the forms of carbohydrate, a type of carbohydrate is starch. Starch is contained in chapati, rice, and therefore, when you chew it for a very, very longer time, you will find that there is some sweet taste. If there is some sweet taste, that means there is presence of starch. All right. So our saliva, it contains a digestive juice. We said that alimentary canal, that is the combination from mouth to anus of all the organs that are required in the digestive process. All of this. So our saliva contains that digestive juice that helps to break down starch into sugar. Okay. So in our mouth itself, what is happening? Starch gets converted into sugar. Sugar is something that helps us recognize this sweet taste if we chew it for a long time. Okay. This explains why starchy food like chapati tastes sweet when you chew it for a long time. Saliva. What is the role of saliva here then? Saliva, it is because here it is saliva. Okay. Saliva helps to break down the components of food into simpler ones. This means that one is crushing and chewing a food through the teeth. Second, the saliva is there in the mouth cavity, and this saliva helps to break down the starch into sugar, and that is why we feel that the food is sweet. Okay. Now, science and society, this tells you about regularly brushing your teeth at least twice a day and also cleaning your tongue. Okay. Now, it further goes and talks about an activity which talks about the action of saliva on starch. Action of saliva on starch. All right. So we are saying that take two test tubes, label them as A and B. Take 1 teaspoon full of boiled rice. Okay. That means it is trying to test, what this activity is trying to test is whether saliva, whether it has the digestive juice, whether it has the digestive juice that can convert, starch into sugars. Is this kind of a mechanism being there? It is not just based upon whether you feel it is sweet or not. There is actually a chemical reaction that occurs, and therefore you will find that this is something that is quite evident from this activity. Okay, so one test tube, it says in one test tube you take teaspoonful of boiled rice, only boiled rice, all right, and take a teaspoonful of boiled rice after chewing because it requires your saliva. We want to test whether the saliva is actively going for digestion or not. Okay, there is some kind of partial digestion because of saliva in the mouth cavity itself. So we take two things. One is the boiled rice test tube, and the second is the teaspoonful of boiled rice after chewing it for 30 to 60 seconds. By this time, we feel that saliva would have interacted with the food that we have consumed, and this would have led the starch to form into some kind of sugars. Okay, you add water into it, and then finally you add 3 to 4 drops of iodine solution into each test tube, both test tube A and as well as B, and mix the content of each test tube separately and observe. The thing is that if if you find that this iodine is being mixed in both of them, then there is a color change. Okay, we will see here. So here, you see, did you observe a color of boiled rice turned blue black in test tube A? Okay. That means if I have starch in the food, A test tube contains starch, that means rice, let us say boiled rice. B has chewed rice. Chewed rice, and this is for 30 to 60 seconds. You have chewed it, and therefore, after adding water, you have kept it. and both of them are added with iodine solution. Iodine solution is kept in both of these test tubes. Okay, where will you see the color change? So you'll find that in this test tube A, you will find that it will turn into blue black color. Okay, while in test tube B, the chewed boiled rice either not change color or turned only a very light blue black color. That means this does not change color. Okay, what does this signify? This signifies that where do you find starch? Okay, that means starch if it is present, starch if it is present, and if you mix iodine solution to it, then it will turn into blue black color. But if starch is not present and if you introduce iodine solution into it, there will be no effect on the color, right? That is what we observe. That is what we observe in rice. That means when we are just keeping boiled rice, there is presence of starch, and therefore iodine solution on adding this, you will have blue black color. Okay? But if we talk about this, if we talk about the chewed rice, that means it has been introduced boiled rice plus saliva. Okay, what does this lead to? It leads to no change in color. That means starch has already been gone. Okay, so it change of color in test tube A. So we have seen already iodine gives a blue black color while it reacts with starch, and in test tube A, the appearance of blue black color indicates the presence of starch. The starch is present in test tube A. That means only the one that is of boiled rice, not with the one with saliva. Test tube B contains chewed boiled rice and there is no change in color. It indicates that starch is no longer present. Okay. If there is only a slight change in color, then it indicates that the starch is present only in very, very small amount. Okay, that is very light change of blue black color. So it has been broken down into what? Why starch is not present? Because it has been broken down into simple sugars by the action of saliva. Okay, so if the color still appears in test tube B, it is because it has not been properly chewed. That means you have not followed the instruction of chewing it for at least 60 seconds, right? So this is there. That is one of the reasons that it is said that you should chew food for a longer time. Okay, because it is going to convert the starch into sugars in the mouth itself. It is not something that starts after the food reaches your food pipe. Okay, it starts in the mouth itself. That is why you should chew your food properly. Okay, so now coming to this portion. Now we know that saliva secretion in the mouth helps break down starch into sugars. Okay, this is the first process. Digestive juice here, saliva. Therefore, the process of breaking complex food components into simpler forms is called digestion. Okay, this process, and food is partially digested. We are not saying that it is fully digested, but yes, partial digestion starts in the mouth itself, and therefore you should properly chew it. Now, let us learn how it further gets digested. We are talking about partially digestion, now how it proceeds to the further stages. Now, coming to this portion, food pipe, esophagus. Food pipe is also known as esophagus, and this is a passage from the mouth to the stomach. Okay? This is the intervening part. If you want to see the diagram, here it is. So, food pipe, this is the food pipe. Okay, it extends from mouth up until stomach. This is the food pipe. All right. So let us see what happens here. So when you chew your food, your saliva not only helps in digesting the starch but also moisten it. That means it gets moistened and makes it soft and easy to swallow. Okay, try swallowing a big guava. You will not find it easy to swallow because it is so huge and it is not moistened, and therefore you will find it is very difficult to swallow. Your tongue helps in mixing chewed food. The use of tongue is it mixes the food with saliva and pushes this softened food into a long, flexible tube called the food pipe or the esophagus. This is how it moves. That means the tongue that is used to mix the food also. Mix the food with what? Mix the food with saliva so that starch gets converted into sugar. And now because it is moistened because of the saliva, it also is ready to go inside the food pipe. All right. So talking about the food pipe, here it is the diagram. You can see that this is the stomach. That means it is site of contraction. Here you will have the mouth. So from mouth to stomach, you will have food pipe. Okay, this is food that is getting ingested. So this is site of relaxation, this is site of contraction. What do we mean by that? That there is some kind of pressure that is being exhibited. Okay, some pressure is there, and then it moves downwards. Okay, there is sign of, this is sign of contraction, this is again contraction, this is contraction, and this is where you have relaxation. That means the food pipe can expand as the food further progresses through this pipeline. Okay, here again you will have signs of contraction. Okay, so this is how the food moves downwards the esophagus, downwards the food pipe. So this is the mechanism how it moves. Let us read further. So the walls of the food pipe, they gently contract and relax in a wave-like motion. This is a wave-like motion, something like this. Let me draw it clearly. So it is something like this, a wave-like motion. If we talk about the movement of food, if this is the food pipe, if this is the food pipe, there is wave-like action. This is wave-like action that you will find on the walls of the food pipe. Okay, so it will move like this. This is the thing that is going to happen on the food pipe walls. All right. Now, moving on to pushing the food downward into the stomach. This movement takes place throughout the alimentary canal and pushes the food forward. Now, stomach. Now it comes to the stomach. We have seen that from mouth to stomach, you will have food pipe. Now the work of food pipe is done. Now we understand what happens in the stomach. Okay. So what happens in the stomach is the walls of the stomach will contract and they will relax to churn food. Okay, that means they contract and relax. That means this is how we were talking about in the food pipe also. This is a mechanism that they will either contract like this, or they will expand like this, contract, expand, and this goes to churn the food. Okay, this is to further churn the food. The churned food, what kind of digestive juice is here? We are saying that digestive juice is present at most of these stages of alimentary canal. So at the mouth level, it was saliva. Okay, at the stomach level, what is the digestive juice? It is then mixed with a secretion from the inner lining of the stomach. Okay, the secretion from the stomach contains digestive juice, acid, and mucus. Three things that we have to definitely remember, that the secretion from the stomach, it is digestive juice. All of this will have different purpose. We will see digestive juice, acid, and mucus. Let us see what is the importance of these kind of secretions from, which are, where are they secreted from? They are secreted from inner lining of the stomach. Okay, here in the diagram I will show you. You see this. So digestive juice, acid, and mucus, all of this is present, and this is the inner line of the wall, stomach wall. Okay. You can see this is the part where you have the inner line. Okay, all of this will be secreted. Digestive juice, acid, and mucus. This is the stomach wall. Okay. Now let us see. Digestive juice of stomach breaks down. Now this is digestive juice. First, digestive juice. Okay, it breaks down the proteins present in the food into simpler components. We first in the mouth part. Remember, mouth mein kya ho raha hai? We are talking about starch. Starch is a form of carbohydrate. Carbohydrate getting converted into the sugar. Okay, that is why we feel the food is sweet. That means the partial digestion starts from the mouth itself. Coming to digestive juice of stomach, the internal linings of the stomach wall will contain various kinds of digestive juices, and therefore here you will have the digestion of proteins. Okay, they break down proteins. All right. Now, what about the acid? Why? What is acid? Why is it needed? Acid that can burn us. It is something that is produced within our stomach. That is something, something that is dangerous maybe. So let us see. It not only helps to break down proteins. This is also proteins. This is also for proteins, right? This is the second part. This is acid. It also kills many harmful bacteria. It is not just to protect ourselves from the bacteria, but also breaks down the proteins to derive nutrition from it. Okay. What about the mucus? We talked about three things: digestive juice, then mucus, and acid. So this is the third part. It protects the stomach lining from the acid, preventing damage. Right. So this answers our question that acid, if it is produced in the stomach, will it not harm the stomach? It can harm the stomach, but mucus is there. that is present as a lining that protects the stomach from getting damaged. All right. Along with that, there is a function that is provided by the acid. That means it provides for breakdown of proteins. So in the stomach, food is partially digested and transformed into a semi-liquid mass for the next stage of digestion. All right. The fascinating fact is the process of digestion was something that was discovered in 1822. That means it was because a man had got shot, and therefore there was a permanent hole in his body here. And because of this, the doctor could observe how the digestion takes place with respect to various kinds of foods that he was eating. And therefore, there was a complete concept created with respect to digestion and understanding of digestion, how it proceeds. Okay. Now, moving on to the next part. Moving on to the next part, that is after stomach. Where does the food go? Where does the food go? So you will see that there is small lining. Okay, this is small intestine. Okay, so it moves to small intestine. Now there is, this is the expanded, this alimentary canal. If it is stretched out, okay, stretched out matlab ki it is not appearing to us as the placement of organs normally would be within our body. Okay, they are just stretching it out so that it is clear for us to recognize all of the components. Mouth, food pipe, stomach, liver, pancreas, small intestine, and large intestine. So we have already seen the function of mouth. We have seen the function of food pipe. Okay, that is wave-like fashion. It proceeds and progresses the food into the stomach. The stomach has certain types of things. Digestive juice is there, acid is there, mucus is there. All of it helps in digesting proteins. Okay. Now it moves towards this part, small intestine. Let us read about it. So after its journey, so here you will have all of these things. There is one thing that you will be surprised to know, and this is that the small intestine, you will notice that small intestine is actually 6 meters long. 6 meters long. 6 meters long. Probably the room that you're sitting in, it is twice the height of that room. Okay, normally 3 meter is the height of the room, that is around 10 feet, and you will find that it is more larger than that. Okay, now let us see whether it has some kind of digestive juice or secretions or not at this point of stage, at this point of alimentary canal. So yes, the small intestine receives digestive secretions from three sources. There are three sources that we have to remember that is there in the small intestine. One is the inner lining of small intestine itself. This is the first part. Two more structures associated with the alimentary canal, and these are the liver. The liver secretes bile, and then there is pancreas. Pancreas is something that we will be reading on later, but first let us cover about liver. Now liver secretes bile. Okay, it secretes bile which is mildly basic in nature. When we talk about the nature of the chemical solutions, we're saying that whether it is acidic. If it is acidic, that means it has more number of hydrogen ions. It means that it is something, for example, it is hydrochloric acid, there is nitric acid, there is sulfuric acid. These are acids. Okay, basic medium, maybe sodium hydroxide. Okay, sodium hydroxide is highly basic in nature. So when we talk about basic and acidity, we are saying that which one is going to be below the level of 7 pH. This is your acidic content. Okay, we are saying that bile has pH greater than 7. Okay, mildly basic. So bile, if it has greater than 7, then it neutralizes the acids present in the food moving down from stomach and breaks down fats into tiny droplets, making its digestion easier. Now again, in the mouth we were talking about what? In the mouth we were talking about the starch getting converted into sugar, that means carbohydrates. In stomach we were talking about the proteins that is breaking down. Here we are talking about fats. The second thing is, this is one thing that you should know, A. The second thing is B, is that bile neutralize the acids that are present in the food that is moving down from stomach. Remember, stomach will have a lining to protect itself, that is in the form of mucus, against the acid that is being produced, acid required for breakdown of proteins. Now this acid containing soluble part, acid containing part that is there, that moves down to the small intestine. How does the small intestine function? It is going to have this bile. This bile, if it is not present, then the neutralization effect will not take place. That means bile will neutralize the acid that is present in the food moving down from stomach. Where is it? We are saying this is in liver. Okay, so when we talk about small intestine, we are also talking about liver that contains bile. Bile is something that is mildly basic, therefore neutralizes the acidic content that we have derived from stomach. Okay, what does the pancreas do? Let us see. So pancreas, they secrete pancreatic juice. Okay, now pancreatic juice. Okay, now this is the digestive juice again. We could say it is also basic in nature, just like bile. It is also basic. Okay, and it helps to neutralize acids present in the. Okay, so one is the factor of neutralization, whether it is liver, which goes for bile production. Okay, or whether we talk about pancreas, whether we talk about pancreas, the juice, the pancreatic juice that is present, both of them are basic, and the nature of this basic mediums is that they will neutralize any type of acid present in the food. The second thing is pancreatic juice also breaks down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Okay, it will also break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Okay, we were talking about carbohydrates in the mouth, and we were also talking about proteins in the stomach that is getting digested. Now, fats with respect to the liver, that is bile, and then carbohydrates, proteins, and fats by pancreatic juice. Okay, it is very, very important. The digestive juice secreted by the wall of the small intestine further breaks down fats, proteins, and partially digested carbohydrates into simpler formats. So we were saying there are three things when we are talking about small intestine. One, we are talking about the digestive juice that is secreted by the internal wall of the small intestine. What does it break down? Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Similarly, for pancreatic juice that is basic in nature neutralizes the acid content in the food, and it is also going to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Liver, which has bile, which produces bile, that is also mildly basic, and it also neutralizes the medium of the food content that is acidic, and it is also responsible for breakdown of fats. Right, now let us proceed. So the digested nutrients pass on. Now here is a transmission. The transmission of the nutrients that are getting derived, because there has been a breakdown of all of this into simpler compounds, and therefore now it is available for consumption by the organism. Okay. So the digested nutrients that pass on from the small intestine into blood, present in the blood vessels found in the walls of small intestine. This process is called absorption of nutrients. Absorption. Okay, that means now it is convenient for the body to use it. It was not convenient before to consume in the complex format. This is the inner lining of small intestine. This is particularly important for us to absorb the nutrients that have been converted from their complex forms. So see how these nutrients absorbed into the small intestine. It is through these finger-like projections. Okay, it is intestine is thin and has thousands of finger-like projections that increase. Okay, one more thing is that this increases this kind of a structure. Why is it needed? Because it increases the surface area largely. Okay, it is area for efficient nutrient absorption. Okay, so this digested nutrients to pass into the blood, which carries them to different parts of the body, and therefore we are able to perform our life processes. Now, this Science and Society box, it talks about a kind of a disease, that is celiac disease. Celiac disease is something that is caused when body reacts with gluten. Gluten is a form of protein. It is a protein that is found in wheat, barley, rye. Okay, a lot of people are allergic to it. Okay, because it further deteriorates the digestive processes for them, and therefore they must avoid these foods that contain gluten. Millets is something there posed as an alternative for them if they are having this kind of celiac disease. Now, moving to the next part of alimentary canal, it is large intestine. Okay. So now, when we say that most of the nutrients, when we are talking about carbohydrates, proteins, fats, most of them are digested and absorbed through finger-like projections in the small intestine, lining of small intestine. What happens to the undigested food? What happens to this undigested food? It moves into the large intestine. Okay, large intestine is actually, when we talk about the length of the intestine, small intestine was 6 meters long. What about large intestine? Large intestine is 1.5 meters long. You might have a question that why is small intestine called small when it is longer in length, and why large intestine is called large when it is smaller in length than the small intestine. The thing is that it is wider. It is wider than the small intestine. This is the reason that large intestine is called such. Okay. Now moving further, the large intestine absorbs water. Okay, now what is the remaining part? That we have seen that nutrients are absorbed, everything has been done. Okay, it has been digested. The body has already gotten it. What about the undigested food? From the undigested food, the body is so efficient that it will absorb water as well as some salts from the undigested food, and this makes the waste semi-solid. Okay, this is what we excrete. This is the semi-solid waste that is called stool. The stool, where is it stored? It is stored in the rectum, in the lower part of large intestine. It is stored in the rectum until the body is ready to get rid of it. Okay. Now, what is the suggestion for you to have a complete evacuation? Is it eating fiber-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains helps the large intestine function properly. It is important for your digestive processes. That is important for the last stage of excreting out the undigested food after the water has been absorbed, after the salts from the undigested food has been absorbed. Makes the stool easier to pass. Finally, it is expelled through the anus, and this process is known as egestion. Egestion means exiting of the waste product. Okay. So this is how the body removes its waste, which is not needed by the body. All right. Now, the fascinating facts, some things that have been said here, is that what kind of food should you eat so that you can improve your digestion? Fiber-rich food, especially fermented foods like curd, buttermilk, shrikhand, kanji, pickles, gandruk, poita bhar. All of these are responsible for creating your healthy digestive systems. Okay, even we have an ancient Ayurvedic text by the name of Charak Samhita. Charak Samhita. It prescribes and the role of easily digestible food and judicious use of spices like ginger, black pepper, cumin. It is not just for taste, it is also for our increasing our digestive juices or protection of our digestive processes. Right? Now, the next thing is we talked about the humans. Okay. Now we talk about, do all animals digest food the same way as humans do? Let us see how does a cow do so. Okay. So it is saying digestive system of a ruminant. What do you mean by ruminant? Okay. So let us see. The grass eating animals such as cows, buffaloes, what do? They partially chew the grass. They swallow it, and it enters their stomachs. What happens in the stomach? The partial digestion of the food takes place. The partially digested food is brought back to the mouth for gradual chewing. Understood? We are saying that it chews partially the grass is being chewed. It reaches the stomach. Okay. In stomach there is interaction with certain types of digestive juice, and this is then brought back into the mouth for further chewing. This whole process is called rumination. Rumination means it is chewing partially and then it is coming to the stomach, and the stomach then puts it back into the mouth. This kind of a process is called rumination, and the animals exhibiting this rumination is called ruminant. Okay, this process, partially digested food is brought back into the mouth for gradual chewing. This process is called rumination, and animals are called ruminants. Do you know that cow spends about 8 hours a day just chewing the food? Okay. So this is about the cattles. Okay. What about birds? Do you see, now in humans we already have a mouth cavity, and in that mouth cavity we have teeth, we have saliva, partial digestion already increases there, and also you have mechanical digestion due to chewing. What about the birds? Do they have teeth? They don't have teeth. Okay. If they don't have teeth, how is the food going to get crushed? So you will see that birds do not have teeth. They have a chamber called gizzard. This is gizzard. This part. This part is gizzard. What happens in gizzard? The food is broken down by contraction and relaxation. That happens in the stomach as well. What is new here? The thing that is new and surprising here is contraction and relaxation of the walls of the gizzard, often with the help of grit. This is small stones that the birds will swallow. You will notice that the food that the bird is trying to take it is going to take it with along with very very small stones. The small stones get stored in the gizzard, and whenever they eat their food, there is relaxation and contraction in the gizzard, and along with the small stones that were already present, and because of this, the food gets broken down. Okay, this kind of a thing is there in birds. So this shows that animals exhibit variations in the structure and function of the alimentary canal to adapt to different ways of digesting different types of food. Okay. Now we move towards respiration. Okay, this was about digestion. Respiration in animals. All right, we start with the respiration in humans first. So we breathe in, we breathe out, inhale air, exhale air, and continuously to obtain oxygen that is required and release the carbon dioxide. How is this oxygen used in the body? It is for our breathing purpose. Okay? There's oxygen and then there is carbon dioxide. So our breathing and respiration different. We'll try to find out. Okay. So first of all, how do we breathe? The process of inhaling and exhaling air is called breathing. Okay, this is clear. That is, we cannot stay without air and we have to breathe in, we have to breathe out. It is difficult to live without food for a week, without water for a day, but without breathing, we usually cannot survive more than a few minutes. Okay. So, respiratory system is also there. Okay, just like the digestive system that helps us to get nutrition from the complex food items that we eat, there is a respiratory system also, and we will see how it is done. So the respiratory system, where does it begin from? It begins with a pair of nasal openings that are called nostrils. So here you can see the diagram of the whole human respiratory system. Okay, starts with nostrils, just like you have a mouth cavity. Just below this, you have mouth cavity. This is your nostril. This is where you intake air, and then you have windpipe. Windpipe will be the passage through which the air passes down to the lungs. You will have a left lung. You will have two pairs. There's one pair of lung. There is left lung, right lung, and you will have a rib cage that protects the lungs. Okay, and you will have a diaphragm that is there at the beneath. You can actually feel your diaphragm, and then alveoli. Alveoli is something that these will end into with respect to the lungs. Okay, let us read through. The inhaled air passes into the pair of small passages that is called nasal passages, and there are some type of tiny hair that is there inside the nostrils as well. Okay, so these hair, what is the function of these hair? These hair along with mucus, the responsibility of this hair along with the mucus is to trap the dirt particles that are there in the air. Okay, it help to trap dust and dirt from the air that we breathe. Okay, so this is why we should not breathe. It is recommended that you do not breathe from your mouth because the tiny hair that is present in your nose and along with the mucus, it is going to trap the dust particles, and therefore that is some mechanism that is not exhibited by mouth. Okay, so you might inhale in a lot of dust particles if you're breathing through your mouth. So the windpipe forms two branches that feed into the two lungs. These are the two branches, and which enters the two lungs. In the lungs, these branches further divide into smaller and finer branches that end in small balloon-like sacs that are called alveoli. Okay, this is called alveoli. These are like the branches of a tree. Branches. Okay, this is your alveoli. All right. Now, science and society, we talk about COVID, okay, COVID times in 2020. So, we have seen that if a lot of dust is not filtered out from the inhaled air, then there can be infection particles that get through the lungs. Okay, and it has been something that has been observed in COVID-19 pandemic also, that the virus affected the respiratory system and led to breathing difficulties, causing serious lung problems. Okay. Now, there is an activity that the book has prescribed us, and it is with respect to understanding the function of lungs. Okay, I'll just explain it to you in brief. What has been said that you take a plastic bottle like this. Okay, you remove the lower part. Okay, this is a plastic bottle. You remove this part. Okay, utilize only this much part. So this is the part that we get. You cover this part with a cork, and then you have a hole in it, and you have this kind of a pipe, that bifurcates into two parts. it attaches to a two balloons like this, and beneath this you have a rubber kind of a structure that you can pull and leave out. Okay, so now, how does it perform the same function, or how is this mechanism good for us to understand the function that lung performs? Is that when you pull this down, it is similar to inhalation. That means we are pulling air inside. So from this part, let me remove all of this. Okay. Now, when you pull it down, the air from the outside goes inside. It goes inside this and inside these balloons. So these balloons inflate. Okay, similar to our lungs, whenever you inhale in air, you will also find the lungs will inflate. Okay, this is when the diaphragm, if this is considered to be diaphragm, it moves down, right? So when we talk about this diaphragm, when you leave this rubber structure, the air again exits. The air exits, and you will find that the lungs will contract. When it moves up, you'll find that the lungs will also contract. Okay, this means that there has been exhalation of air. This is the same mechanism as is followed by lungs. Okay, so here you can see. So here is the mechanism that when you breathe in, inhale, your chest expands as your ribs move up and outwards. Okay, whenever you try to breathe in, your rib cage will also move outwards. All right. The diaphragm, a dome shape, moves downwards during inhalation. When we breathe in, it moves downwards. This diaphragm that is present, you can actually feel the diaphragm, and you will feel that it will move downward as you inhale in air. Okay. When you breathe out, the ribs move outward, down, and inwards. Okay, that means your chest seems to be compressed. It moves inwards, and the diaphragm will move upwards. Okay, that is, it is pushing the air out of the lungs. Okay, so what is there? These balloons represent, now just for our understanding, these balloons, they represent lungs. Okay, this represents your windpipe. This rubber stretched represents diaphragm. Okay, now this thing is understood. We move on to the further part, that is science and society. Another thing that tells you how to breathe responsibly and for a healthy life what is needed. There has been various kinds of practices that help in us inhaling fresh air. Okay, fresh air that is required for our life processes. Pranayam is something that improves the respiratory health, mind relaxation, and concentration. In Ladakh, there is something called as tummo breathing. Tummo breathing. It is a technique that improves the lung function and helps to keep the body warm, because we know that there is cold weather. It keeps the body warm also, right? Now, the next important question is, what do we breathe out? Okay, this is the whole process of respiration, but what do we breathe out? What is the content of the air that we breathe out? The question is this. Okay, so it is something that we can demonstrate. Okay, it is through this activity. So here I will just explain this in brief. There is A and B. We are saying that this test tube contains lime water. This contains lime water. This also contains lime water. Both of these test tubes contain lime water. We will try to introduce air. Okay, we'll try to introduce air. That is the normal composition of air, that is through pichkari or a syringe we can take. So this kind of air is introduced through a straw into this test tube, okay, into lime water. Now there is another person. This can be you. What you are doing is you are exhaling the air that you earlier breathed, you have breathed inside. Okay, so you have taken the breath, you are inhaled, and now you exhale it where? Exhale it in this lime solution. Okay, lime solution is something that with carbon dioxide on interaction with carbon dioxide, it will turn milky. Okay, so when you do this in test tube A, you will find that there is no color change. However, in test tube 2, that is test tube B, you will find that as you exhale, you'll find that this lime water changes into milky color. When it changes into milky color, we mean that it is because there is higher concentration of CO2. So this answers our question that what do we breathe out? It is mostly composed of carbon dioxide. Matlab, there is some amount of carbon dioxide into it. Okay. So lime water in test tube B turns milky, but the lime water in test tube A does not. What does this indicate? Lime water turns milky when it reacts with carbon dioxide. Okay. Now the next question. The next question is, how does the exchange of gases happen? How does this exchange of gases happen? Through the process. Now we have seen that there is lungs. Okay, there is from the windpipe we will have inflow of air, that the inhaled air is there, and from that you will have windpipe, and then it will introduce itself into the lungs where it has alveoli. Okay. Now let us see, gas exchange is there through alveoli. Through the process of breathing, fresh air from the outside enters the lungs through specific pathway and fills the alveoli. The alveoli have thin walls. They have thin walls surrounded by fine tubes containing blood. You can see this. This is alveoli. This is alveoli. And the ones that are in blue, the ones that are in blue color, you'll find that they are the ones that the blood is carrying carbon dioxide. And this red color, it is the transport of oxygen to all parts of the body. This is red one. Okay, so the blood carrying oxygen, it is the red one. That means it is a pure form of blood. The one carrying carbon dioxide is blue in color. Okay, what happens inside all of this alveoli? All of this alveoli, what happens inside? It is shown by this diagram. You'll see that there is continuous carbon dioxide from the blood that is getting inside this, that is getting inside, and then there is oxygen that is going into the bloodstream. Okay, like this. All right. So you will see that blood carries carbon dioxide from the body to the alveoli where it is released into the air. At the same time, oxygen from alveoli passes into the blood and is transported to all parts of the body. All right. So this is how the gaseous exchange takes place. Now, one more question. This is another question, that how does the food that we eat gives us energy? Is it possible without the inhalation or oxygen? So the key is not only food but also oxygen we breathe. That is, when we eat food, our body breaks it down into simpler substances like sugar. All right. And oxygen, the role of oxygen here is oxygen helps to break down the glucose to release energy. This process is called respiration. Okay. So this whole process, that is, we are talking about the energy getting used, is also called, it has to be included within the definition of respiration. So respiration is glucose, that is energy, plus oxygen from the respiration part, glucose from the digestion part. Both of these combine and release carbon dioxide, water, and energy for running our life processes. All right. Now, in this diagram, it shows us what is the quantity of oxygen in the inhaled air and in the exhaled air. Nearly 21% inhaled air, atmosphere 21%, exhaled air 16 to 17% oxygen. It means not all oxygen that we breathe in is getting utilized. Okay, how much carbon dioxide? Near 0.04%. And the carbon dioxide that we breathe out, more, much more, 4 to 5% carbon dioxide. Okay, so what is the difference between breathing and respiration? Breathing is a physical process, while respiration is a chemical process that occurs inside the body, and both are essential for our survival. Right? So our body has a unique system for transport of nutrients. This system, now we talked about first digestive system, we talked about respiratory system. Now circulatory system is also there, that has a unique system for transport of nutrients, oxygen, and substances. We have seen that there is digestive system, there is respiratory system, and now other substances that let the nutrients also transfer to other parts of the body. Includes heart, blood, and blood vessels. Ensures the transport of nutrients, oxygen, and other substances to all parts of the body while waste products are carried out. It is recommended that you do not smoke because it seriously deteriorates the function of the lungs. Okay. Now talking about another animals, we talk about fish. So you will see that how do they breathe in? We talk about animals like birds, elephants, lions, cows, goats, lizards, snakes. They all breathe through lungs. Okay. There are another animals you'll find like fish, like most aquatic animals like fish. They have specialized features like gills. Okay. These are richly supplied by blood vessels. So there is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the gases dissolved. What about amphibians? Amphibians, or what about the frogs that are amphibians? They live on both land and water, and therefore they have mechanism of both respiration in land and water. Breathing at various stages for life. For example, tadpoles will breathe through gills, while adult frogs will use lungs when they are breathing on land, and they will use skin for gas exchange when they are in water. So this adaptation helps them survive both in water as well as land. Okay, so this shows how they have adapted over time to different environments. What about earthworms? Earthworms will use moist skin. Okay, they have a moist skin that is useful for exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. All right. So all of this very important. This is the end of the chapter, right? So I hope you have learned something, and this is your chapter, life processes in animals. This is chapter number 9 of class 7th science book. I hope you have understood something. If not, please comment and we will resolve your doubts, as well as comment if you want to go for any kind of additional information sharing. Thank you so much.